Welcome, everybody. David E. Smith Jr., Secret World of Money, and it is Understanding Your Money. I'm with co-host Fred Dashevsky. We are going to talk to Fred about the Constitution and what it means with gold and silver coins.
In the early days of the U.S., the Constitution actually specified certain provisions to make the value of money remain consistent. One of the most important things was defining the word dollar to be a quantity of silver or gold. And the intent was this way the public could earn a dollar and hopefully hold on to it for many years and still be able to buy the same amount of goods and services. We currently use paper notes that are unbacked, and that allows for the printing of additional notes whenever debt is accumulated. But unfortunately, that has also a result, which is it weakens the value of the purchasing power, or what you and I as American citizens get when we go to spend these paper notes. So money in the current form in paper deteriorates very quickly over time. And it's the reason why I've been in the gold and silver coin industry for almost 40 years, recommending that people diversify their wealth and include the physical gold and silver coins to represent real money.
Well, tell us about, you said notes are not backed.
Up till 1971, the U.S. operated on a gold and silver currency status, which meant that the paper that was issued for the public, there was sufficient quantities of gold and silver backing those notes, and it prevented inflation from running away, and it prevented the government from running up massive deficits or overspending because they could only spend what they could work with, which was limited to the amount of money that they could create that still had enough gold and silver to back it. In early 1971, we removed that standard as a last resort when it became impossible for the United States to sustain the value of money backed by gold and silver, and we removed the standard completely. And ever since then, the paper value has been deteriorating more and more rapidly. In the modern era, it's deteriorated more rapidly than any time in U.S. history as we've been printing money to solve every economic problem, especially the big issues that have come up in the past decades, like, the major crisis of 2008 and the problems in 2012, the subsequent issues we've had since 2020 with COVID. We have dealt with all of this by printing massive amounts of money. Again, all of that since the 70s being unbacked is seriously diluting the money value, the paper value of the currency people are holding.
We've been officially taken off of the gold standard. Well, the first time that we were taken off of the gold standard, was that in 1933?
Well, up to 33, we had physical gold coins being minted by the U.S. Treasury that were redeemable to the bearer on demand. So the paper notes in circulation up to 33 stated at the top that these were backed by gold and silver and redeemable to the bearer. Meant physically you could walk into a Federal Reserve Bank with $20 note and redeem a $20 gold coin for that note. And then the note would be destroyed. After 1933, although we maintained the standard of gold and silver on the dollar, we did remove the public's ability to actually ask for that physical gold or silver. So we kept the standard, but we took away the redeemability clause. That was sort of step one of the process. As we look at it now, historically, we've come to understand that was part of an ever-evolving process, ending in 1971 with the complete removal of the backing of the paper money with the gold and silver standards. So that left us since then with what they call fiat, or completely unbacked paper money.
So the chance of us going back to the standard, is that viable? Would that be viable, and is that a possibility?
It seems rather unlikely, because it would mean that the U.S. government would have to then control its spending and be locked into having to only be able to utilize the amount of capital that it could create backed by gold or silver. I don't think the U.S. government in its current status could sustain that lockdown. I don't think that they could possibly survive being limited to not being able to print the amount of money that they print currently based on some sort of standard. So it seems to me a little unrealistic to expect we would ever go back to a gold and silver standard.
And as far as money now, it used to be coins, then paper notes, but now it's plastic. What do you foresee for the future? I mean, because gold and silver, for instance, it was the official money in the Constitution, and that's what it's supposed to be. But now people are using, including myself, and using plastic. So where do you think everything is kind of molding into? What is it morphing into?
Well, it seems to be we move towards convenience, right? So we can sell the public on the convenience of using alternatives. Initially, the idea of holding paper money was the convenience of not having to carry around, a pocket full of gold or silver coins that might be very heavily weighted. And you could carry a paper note that represented the same value, and it was easier to exchange the paper note than to carry around the gold and silver coins themselves. Now in the modern era, of course, a lot of people do use things like credit cards, and we've advanced to all sorts of technological money transfers, Apple Pay, things of that nature, where people flash their phone and it's attached to a card or a bank account, and funds are transferred that way. And I think technology will continue to evolve, and a lot of people expect digital currency to take over the paper money. And I think within time, that's certainly very likely. It seems like we're heading in that direction. It really doesn't change much for the public except the way the money looks. But there are a couple fundamental changes without printing paper money. Most importantly, I think for you and I, it becomes a lot more difficult to count how much money is out there in the economic environment if they're not printing it and counting it. And the ability of the government to add money by digitally punching a keyboard entry and then expanding the supply of money for the entire nation kind of concerns me. And then lastly, I think there's a loss of privacy. If all the transactions are digital, then every single transaction that occurs, no matter how large or small, is therefore easily recordable. And, who knows, that might lead to, social engineering when it comes to the value of money. Governments curtailing your spending based upon what they think would be good habits for you.
Well, definitely that's the two topics you've mentioned that we need to talk about one day is privacy and social engineering. I think a lot of people really don't understand what that is and how that affects them, but I think that's very important to put into perspective. So being involved in gold and silver coins is what because we're talking about constitutional money, but, how is it then a protection for people, because people are so used to plastic and people are so used to paper? How is it a protection for them? Because you still sell it, so that means it has some kind of value, correct?
Absolutely. So, the protection in owning a gold coin is, let's think about it in the terms of the purchasing power of a gold coin compared to the same paper money value. So in the 1933 year, the last year we had that gold coin we were talking about earlier that circulated along with the $20 paper note, they were both at that time identical in their purchasing power. So $20 in 1933, for most of us who have not been around since then, may not know, but a $20 bill in 1933 had a lot of buying power. I mean, you could buy enough food with $20 in 1933. You could have loaded your refrigerator and fed a family of four for about a month. A $20 gold coin in 1933 would have bought a tailored man's suit, or again, that month's worth of food. Now today, that $20 gold coin is worth well over $2,000, and still basically has retained the same purchasing power, and will still provide the same goods and services it did, 90 years ago. Whereas that $20 paper note, I mean, you can spend $20 on lunch now. You're certainly not feeding a family of four for $20 going to the supermarket to buy food. I mean, if you went with $20 and try to buy whatever you could, you'd barely need a bag to carry it out. So purchasing power changes over time in paper, but it is sustained extremely well in physical gold and silver coins, especially the U.S. coins minted by the government, because they don't make more of them. So we haven't produced one of these gold coins since 1933. And that means those people smart enough to acquire them in today's world are owning something that will protect their wealth, that will retain purchasing power. And the weaker this paper money side of the world becomes, the more valuable that gold coin you bought in today's market will be for you in your future and your future of your family.
So you're saying purchasing power increases when you possess those precious metals, even though times have changed. If they purchase it now, it has purchasing power, correct?
Absolutely. So you can convert it back into the couple of $1,000s that it's worth today if you have a $20 gold coin, and then use that money to buy goods and services. Had you held your money in paper, of course, it would have lost about 97% of what it was worth back in the 1930s. So the value of money is changing over time very quickly. And the rate at which we're printing money in America now has actually accelerated. We've added almost more than 40% to the amount of money in circulation that existed 2 years ago. In the past 2 years, that is a very quick devaluation of the existing currency. So I feel this problem is going to get worse going forward as the government continues to spend money it doesn't have. It needs to bring in additional capital to pay its deficits, pay interest on the debt it's carrying. So the government's going to keep printing more and more of this paper money, and that is detrimental to the wealth of the average American, which is why I believe diversifying some of one's wealth and owning a portion of what you put away long term in these physical gold and silver coins, it just makes perfect sense.
Well, Fred, thank you very much. This segment here, ladies and gentlemen, was Understanding Money, part of the secret world of money